All right, here we go. This is group 2. We're revitalizing the wool industry, a collaborative presentation from Australia, the United States of America, and New Zealand. The overview, introductions, history of the global wool industry overview, Australia, USA, New Zealand, and the way forward.
Good morning or evening or afternoon, everybody. I'll start off with the introductions. So I'm Alanah Boxhall. I'm from Arthur River in Western Australia, and we run merino and dooney crosses. And I also work for Elders Rural Services, which is an agricultural-based company in Australia.
I'm Jacob Benson. I'm from the Western US in a little town called Parowan, Utah. I run a Rambouillet and polypaste sheep mix, range operation. Also work for the Soil Conservation Service here in the Western US, where we work on conservation practices helping farmers and ranchers.
And I'm Olivia Ellis. I grew up on an intensive sheep beef and cropping farm in Hawke's Bay of New Zealand. I now work for Kelso Genetics as their operations manager, which is a crossbred sheep stud. We breed crossbred rams for commercial farmers all over New Zealand. So a bit about the history of the wool industry. The wool boom peaked in about the mid-1950s, and this was driven by a global increase for demand of the natural, durable, and high-quality clothing. So this was especially seen in the Defence Forces. In the 1950s, the term "a pound for a pound" meant just that, when prices shot to a level never seen before with wool, and this was when wool was considered gold. In the 1960s, the world consumption of major textile fibers was made up of 95% natural fibers, so that's wool and cotton, and then 4% of oil-based synthetics. So since the wool boom, the worldwide wool industry has been in decline. It's been fueled by the rising competitiveness of plastic and oil-based synthetics. This offers consumers textiles at a cheaper price, potentially more versatile compared with wool. And this is when we saw the rise in fast fashion. So in the latest Textile Exchange Market Report in 2022, it explained that the low cost of fossil fuel-based synthetics still makes the most popular choice. So polyester holds the highest market share of 54%, amounting to more than half the world's total fiber production. And of that, only 15% is recycled, where wool is the most used animal fiber, but it only holds a 1% market share. So from 2020, we've all seen some very turbulent years with COVID-19. This created many supply chain disruptions, labour challenges, processing challenges, inflation and interest rates surged higher, and of course the cost of living crisis. So therefore we decided to look into ways the global wool industry can be revitalised.
Awesome. So the Australian wool industry, we're very, very known for the merino breed of sheep. And out of the wool that goes into our premium wool items in the world, Australia supplies about 90% of that. So we're overall the second largest wool producing country in the world, behind China, and then New Zealand's behind us. In the 2022-2023 season, we shore about 70.9 million sheep in Australia, so that produced over 300 million kilos of greasy wool, which averages out to about 4.5 kilos per head. In Australia at the minute, there is quite a few challenges within the shearing industry, so cost is probably one of our biggest challenges, particularly over here in the West. It can be upwards of between $10 to $12 per head full contract for shearing. So that's quite a big expense, especially when people have larger operations. We're also facing some pretty big uncertainty within the industry at the minute with sheep production. So in Western Australia, obviously the live export ban, that is in fact putting a lot of uncertainty into our industry. So people in my area in particular are working out what they're going to be doing with their enterprises, and a lot of people are actually contemplating going out of sheep production altogether, which will drive our wool production numbers down definitely. So this graph that's on the right is a little bit of an overview of the last 3 years of the Australian wool industry over a couple of microns. So the value of wool has been decreasing and declining over the last few years quite significantly. So in 2023-2024 season, so this last season, the Australian wool exports fell by 12%, which was quite a big fall. So it fell by over $300 million. And that's basically due to a weakened demand from our predominant market, which is Asia. This is the second consecutive year that we've seen these decreases in both price and export volumes as well. In the 2024-2025 season, it's again predicted to fall again due to lower productions, but also the general overall easing in pricing. The Australian Wool Production Forecasting Committee expect that there is going to be another about 10% decline in the number of sheep shorn in the 2024-2025 season. However, in saying all of that, there are some positive things that are happening within the Australian wool industry at the minute. So Australian wool producers pay a 1.5% levy, and there is a push to get it up to a 2% levy, and that funds AWI, or the Australian Wool Innovation. And their main focus is on research and development and on the marketing side of things. In Australia, there's also a big push for animal husbandry certifications and wool accreditations as well. And that's basically us ticking a big box saying, yes, we are treating our animals humanely and we are producing wool in an ethical way. There are also some cool little bits of technology that's coming through at the minute. So there's a little device being developed at the minute called Woven Optics, and it's an on-farm micron predictor basically. So Woven Optics have gone into partnership with Heineken, which is a shearing supply company, and they are manufacturing these little handheld devices, and it allows you to scan your fleece on farm and get real-time data. And this could be quite valuable for whether it's studs or whether it's your commercial growers, especially with the development and implementation of EID tags. People can start capturing micron data on farm instead of having to send their wool samples away. There's also the shearing delivery modules that are being developed. So AWI have funded this project, and there are lots of different manufacturers around the country at the minute, one actually based in Darkham, which is one of my closest towns, that are looking at manufacturing these modules. And the idea behind them is to basically stop shearer fatigue and them having to actually drag the sheep out of the pen. So it reduces your risks for cuts and second cuts and things like that. There's also something that between the three of us, we quite like is the Where Will Not fossil fuel campaign, and we will touch on it later on in this presentation, but it was released in 2022 and it was in collaboration between Woolmark and AWI. And when it was released, it had over 68 million views, and it really, really did have such a wide reach via social media. And it was a fantastic campaign basically to educate and bridge the gap between people that produce wool and people that don't really know about wool or are very, very pushed towards synthetic fibres. The last little bit of technology I want to touch on is called bioharvesting. So it's in development at the minute, but it's a protein that's extracted from corn, which is injected into an animal, and it creates an even fibre break. And basically the wool can stay on there for 4 to 6 weeks, and then it's removed via a vibrating device, and then, you know, either suctioned off the sheep or something like that. They haven't quite got that bit worked out yet, but it's a really, really exciting bit of technology, especially with the high cost of shearing at the minute. If you've got wool that is very, very low valued, and you can save having to get shearers in and labour and things like that, this has a great potential within the shearing industry. So it'll be very exciting to see how this goes and whether it gets off the ground fully and it gets used by commercial producers or not.
Okay, United States of America, we're a small drop in the bucket in the wool world, but we'll give it a shot. The United States of America wool industry, as of January 1st, 2023, there's 5.2 million sheep in the U.S. In 2021, 22.5 million pounds, 10,000 tons of wool produced. This is down 3% from the previous year. Opportunities in new tech in the U.S., increasing use of wool, recreation, construction, and natural resources. The younger generation's wool use is increasing. Innovative use and sustainability, traceability to local farms and ranches, strategic advertising and seasonal direction, industrial capability and insulation and erosion control. Wool is a sustainable fiber that is also biodegradable and extremely durable use for all seasons. Some of the innovation things they've been doing here in the U.S. There's a guy that runs wool, lesser quality wool, through a high pressure press and puts wool into little pellets. And they're using the pellets in gardening and potted plants to help increase soil structure and retain soil moisture. And they're trying to figure out how to put that on an industrial scale. It's in the process now, but I feel like that's a unique situation. Wool pellets used for gardens and potted plants help increase oxygen in the soil, slowly release nutrients, and retain soil moisture. Improving water efficiency by incorporating wool into the soil is a great conservation practice that's gaining popularity. Outdoor recreation, both desirable in the winter and summer due to the wicking moisture, components that wool naturally offers, along with durability, hiking, hunting, running, camping, and a lot more. The use of wool can be enjoyed by more and utilized globally with innovation in the upcoming years. Following the pandemic and the explosion of outdoor recreation, we've seen an increase of wool use in the U.S. and the desire for wool, because everyone was stuck at home and decided to go outside, and they figured out that wool is a great product to use.
Okay, so as Alanah mentioned before, New Zealand is the third largest producer of wool in the world. So in the 2022-23 season, New Zealand produced 128,000 tonne, which equates to 282 million pounds of wool from 25.7 million sheep. So that works out to be just under 5 kilos of greasy wool per sheep. The average shearing cost per farm this year is sitting around $28,000, which was up 4.5% on the last season. And this works out to be $5.88 per sheep. This is forecasted to increase this coming season to around $31,000 per farm, or $6.70 per sheep. So since 2019, wool and shearing has become a loss-making exercise for most farm classes, especially strong wool, where the average wool revenue is just around $17,000. So on the table that you can see on the slide, the outlook for the current season for fine wool prices is dropping by 12.7%. This is actually following a 5.5% decrease from the previous season. The mid-micron or medium wool prices are also predicted to drop by 3.5%, but conversely, strong wool prices are forecasted to increase by 4%. And although this may seem positive for some of New Zealand's farmers, it would actually have to lift substantially before wool becomes profitable again for strong wool farmers. So in 2009, New Zealand farmers voted against paying for a wool levy. Since then, industry bodies have been created to help turn the wool industry around. So the Campaign for Wool, this was launched in 2010 by His Majesty King Charles III when he was the Prince of Wales. This campaign works to educate consumers about the benefits of wool and why choosing wool could help safeguard the planet for future generations. This is jointly funded by British Wool, Australian Wool Innovation and the Woolmark Company, Cape Wool South Africa, and the Campaign for Wool of New Zealand. Then we have Wool Impact New Zealand. This is jointly funded by the government, leading meat companies and wool industry stakeholders. Very similar task, but they're aiming to drive collaboration and innovation to increase demand for New Zealand's strong wool on the international stage. So this is where they give brands or influencers and innovators all the information they need to promote this natural product. We also have numerous wool assurance programs used in New Zealand, Wool Integrity New Zealand, the New Zealand Farm Assurance Program, ZQ and ZQRS, and the Responsible Wool Standard, and they all have great qualities about them, but this could probably be an area that we could refine by streamlining the audit process for farmers, and it would make our wool more cohesive and recognisable on the world stage. So New Zealand has some various exciting innovations to try and revitalise the wool industry, and some of them are listed here on the slide. There was actually too many to list on the slide. So WoolSource is transforming New Zealand's strong wool fibres into new products such as powders, pigments, particles and cortexes. So these products can be used in personal care and cosmetics, printing, paint, bioplastics. And then we have Wool Chemie, which is when a mother created or searched for diapers that minimise the environmental impact. She was very horrified to learn that each nappy contains the equivalent of 1 cup of crude oil. So she went on a mission to find the first of its kind using natural materials such as wool in ecological personal care products. And then Flock Acoustic Panelling. This uses strong wool to eliminate common acoustic sound issues, echoes and reverberation. And these are vital in open plan offices, classrooms, and I definitely think a lot of New Zealand restaurants could benefit from it as well. Then we have Lanico. This is a low resistance air filtration media, so it has high air permeability and high dust holding capacity. This is used in many residential and commercial buildings, automotives, heavy machinery. NASA actually chose Lanico as their glass filters were causing clogging problems in their breathing apparatus. So yeah, with these innovations, there's huge opportunity to gain back some of that textile market share that I mentioned before. However, I guess to see the price of wool change at the farm gate, these products need to be mass produced at a reasonably low cost to ultimately influence the demand. Manufacturing wool for infrastructure is probably also a good one. That can be done with less labour at a low cost, and it can be done with wool of low or high quality. So we do need to advocate for increased use of wool in buildings. This is a significant market opportunity as commercial projects require substantial quantities of materials.
So you've heard from us all of the challenges, but also all of the exciting things that are happening in each of our respective countries' wool industries. Between the three of us, we're all very excited about the opportunities that are happening within the wool industry, and there is a real chance for the wool industry globally to be revitalised. There is a big push for sustainable and ethical materials at the minute, and wool is one of the best ones. It's the most versatile fibre in the world. So we all feel like collaboration between wool producing countries to both share any new research but also new technologies is highly important to make sure that our wool industries keep moving forward. Social media, we did touch on it before, but that has a massive influence and impact on the types of products and fibres that people are buying. So it would be fantastic to even see a campaign between wool producing companies at a specific time of year that's pushed across all social media platforms to basically reintroduce wool to a younger generation and make it cool again, because I think people forget that it's a fibre. They go, oh, it's been there for, for forever, and people forget what type of fibre it is and how amazing it is. Education is also one of the things that can help bridge the gap between producers and your end consumers. So improving the awareness of wool, whether that's through bringing agriculture into the whether that's bringing agriculture into curriculums at schools and starting them off at a very young age and introducing them to the different natural fibres that are produced in agriculture. Market access as well, so exploring broader markets or different markets. So between Australia and New Zealand, both countries, we export upwards of 80% of our wool into Asian markets. For Australia, last year it was about 98% of our wool was exported into China. So it doesn't allow for a massive safety net for our producers at the minute. Also, fashion houses as well. So the fashion industry is a massive driver of where wool gets used. So obviously all of our big fashion houses create the trends for our fast fashion houses. So it'd be fantastic to see more wool being used in our luxury fashion houses, because that will filter down to our fast fashion houses. And it would be fantastic to see more wool used in garments at a high level, but also at an everyday wearing level as well. And as Olivia did touch on before, so the industrial and construction industries, so there's great potential for the use of broader and stronger fibred wools, which is they're quite cheap for people to buy, and there's a lot of potential for them to be used in things like insulation or soundboards. They're quite typically used in your flooring, so carpets and things like that. So it'd be fantastic to see that industry take off a little bit more and provide a bit more of a market for our producers. I think Olivia might have dropped off maybe. Oh no, there she is. We want to leave you today and just finish it off with this little video, because it's the style of social media marketing that between the three of us we would really like to see, because it has such an impact and it reaches such a wide array of people. Wonderful. We would like to say a big thank you for everybody for attending our presentation today. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to fire away.